If you want to find an example of a truly terrifying villain, you need look no further than Hannibal Lecter in The Silence of the Lambs. The director does a wonderful job of making this character terrifying, and he does it in a very interesting way. He introduces the character before he first appears on screen. Now, this might sound counterintuitive, but he achieves this in two ways, one of which is in dialogue before we first meet him, such as this line when the asylum warden is talking about the kind of man he is.
Oh, he's a monster. Pure psychopath. So rare to capture one alive. From a research point of view, Lecter is our most prized asset.
Now, despite this line's bluntness in its purpose, it does a wonderful job at building the viewer's expectations. It tells us straight up that Hannibal is the most depraved and psychotic man in the asylum. Now, there are many lines in these opening scenes that serve a similar purpose, the purpose of building up an image of Hannibal in the viewer's minds. And all of this build-up pays off in the next scene. Now, right here, the director does something very interesting. As Clarice is walking along the corridor up to Hannibal's cell, he uses the camera to reinforce the information we had learned previously. As she walks along the corridor, there are 3 inmates she sees before Hannibal. The first is a little creepy, where he smiles at her and says hello. The next inmate seems even more dysfunctional, as he just sits there and stares blankly, barely reacting to her presence. The third is by far the most insane. He is jittery and leaping around his cell almost like an ape. This is brilliant because it establishes that as the cells go along, the inmates are growing more and more insane. We know that the man in the end cell, he is not just bad, he's not just insane, he is the paragon of insanity, the absolute worst human being you could ever hope to possibly imagine. And judging by the prior inmate, where he is ape-like and whispers how he can smell a not-so-family-friendly area of the protagonist's body, we expect Hannibal to be some kind of feral beast, ready to pounce. Now, all of these expectations set in mind, here is the next shot.
Good morning.
He is standing straight, in a well-lit cell, and compared to the prior inmates, he shows no obvious symptoms of insanity. This is terrifying, because it totally shatters the viewer's expectations. We have been told he is a most depraved individual, yet he looks so civil and like anyone you might see on the street, except there's something just a little bit off about him. What follows from this point on between the two characters is not so much a conversation, it's more a battle for power over the other. And I think this line right here marks the very start of that battle.
Closer, please. Closer.
In this line of dialogue, Hannibal makes a demand that she brings her ID badge closer, and she abides. Even though this is a token action that on the surface seems like something quite harmless, it helps to lure us as an audience into a feeling of insecurity, as we feel right from the start that Hannibal is successfully manipulating the protagonist. He makes a demand, she follows it. Hannibal has an amount of power over her, and it makes us uneasy. When you look at a great example of dialogue in fiction, there is almost always a conflict between the two characters, where one has a different opinion to the other, or one wants something that the other doesn't want. This is a pretty basic concept, but part of the reason why this scene in Silence of the Lambs is so gripping and has such compelling dialogue is because it is full of that conflict. Clarice wants Hannibal to help her with an investigation. Hannibal doesn't want to, and I think to the untrained eye it might be a little confusing as to why Hannibal is so terrifying in this scene, because he is behind thick glass and he cannot physically hurt her, so he shouldn't be terrifying because he has no power. So the reason he is scary must be because of something else, right? The problem is, that is a surface level observation, and the more we look at it, the more we realise that actually the truth is the exact opposite. The reason Hannibal is such a terrifying villain is because he has all of the power. Now, this might sound a little nonsensical, seeing as he is in a cage, but Clarice came to him wanting one thing: for his help in catching a murderer. In this respect, she is quite vulnerable, because she could very easily fail and not achieve her goals. It would require almost no effort from Hannibal's part to totally shatter her ambitions. The outcome of this scene, whether she gets help or not, is entirely in his hands. This right here, the powerlessness of the protagonist, is why Hannibal Lecter is such a terrifying villain. The cinematography also does a wonderful job at helping to reinforce the two characters' power. Near the start of the conversation, she sits down and he is stood up. This makes her physically lower than him, which helps to convey how non-literally he is above her in a sense of power. You can see this in the shots where he looks down at the camera while she looks up instead, and in a later scene where he finally surrenders his power and agrees to help her, she goes from sitting down on the floor to standing up, so they are both seeing eye to eye. Levels are a fairly basic dramatic technique, but when used properly, they can be quite provocative. Also, when you look at the framing of the characters, there is something quite interesting going on. Hannibal's face takes up the whole screen, while with her, her face takes up only half. This helps to make Clarice feel small and again with no power. The negative space around the characters is directly proportional to the amount of power that character has.
Most serial killers keep some sort of trophies from their victims.
I didn't.
No. No, you ate yours.
As you can see, when she makes this statement, that catches him off guard, and her face in the shot when she does it is in the centre and is much larger than in the prior, which indicates how she has reclaimed some of her lost power. Also, when she delivers the line, he breaks off his eye contact with her that he had maintained constantly throughout the entire scene in his response to his loss of power. So how could we use this example to address how you can terrify your audience? Well, it's all to do with power. It is no coincidence that in horror films, the protagonist is often someone with low competence. For example, how in It, the characters at risk are a group of children, or how in Alien, the characters are a bunch of pilots and mechanics who can barely defend themselves. Now, Aliens was a great film, however it was less horrifying than Alien, and I think understanding the reason why can help you to learn an important lesson in how to terrify your audience. Because Aliens follows a group of Marines who, when it comes down to defending themselves, are much more competent than the cast of Alien. The characters in Aliens have the ability to kill the monsters. The characters in Alien don't. So what does this mean? If you want your audience to feel terrified, it is all to do with which character has the power. Thanks for watching today's video essay. It's actually dawned on me recently that right now the AdSense on this channel alone is earning me more money per day than my actual job. The crossing of this line has honestly come sooner than I thought it would, and while I'm not going to quit my job for the time being, it seems that me making these videos full time is quickly becoming more and more of an inevitability. You know, I was actually looking at my analytics the other day, and I realised my average watch time is 7 minutes long. For those of you who don't know, the average watch time on YouTube is about 2 to 3 minutes long. That means I'm getting over double the retention of the average content creator, which is a truly insane statistic. Even on a bad day, this channel gets about 300 subscribers, a rate of growth that I'm sure many people would probably kill for. The response from all of you guys to these videos is so overwhelmingly positive, and the number of you supporting me on Patreon each month is growing steadily like clockwork. This channel is in an amazing place right now, and every piece of data corroborates it is only going to get better from here on out. So I just wanted to say thank you. This channel is going better than I could have ever asked for, and the future is looking very bright. Anyway, if you enjoy these video essays and would like to help me in creating them, then please do consider donating to my Patreon. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time on The Closer Look.
You know I can't make that promise.
I do wish we could chat longer, but I'm having an old friend for dinner.